Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML.
News Talk 1270 KIML. Don Carpenter Show. And we're going to change things up a little bit. I a little bit of a scheduling snafu, but I'm pleased to be joined. It's a pleasant surprise. I'm pleased to be joined in studio by Norine Kasperik. And we're going to talk a little bit about your campaign. Now, I mean, you're running unopposed. You're the representative from District 32, House District 32, the west side of Gillette. And you're running unopposed, so, I mean, you really didn't have to stop by, but I'm glad you did. It gives us kind of a chance to talk a little bit about your background and a little bit about some of the things you've been doing down in Cheyenne. We got a little bit of a chance to catch up before we went on the air. So first, welcome.
Thanks, Don. It's good to be here.
Well, so why don't we talk a little bit? I mean, I'm sure most of the people listening are probably familiar with you, but for those that aren't, just give us a little bit of an idea of your background and your history.
Okay. Well, I'm a nurse. I've spent about 38 years in nursing, critical care, emergency care. I've even done some work in human resources and international recruitment of nurses, and finished my career here in Gillette as a nurse educator for the Gillette College nursing program. Worked 13 years as nurse educator. My last year I was the interim director for our program and retired in 2010.
Now, and one of the things I've actually heard, Gillette College apparently has a really good nursing program, so I guess you're a big part of that.
Well, I was glad to be any kind of a part of that program. The nurses are special, the faculty's special. We have a good program. We, I think, produce some of the best nurses, not only in the state but in the country. And my background in nursing is from many states, from Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Illinois, Missouri, here in Wyoming, and we grow some of the best in Wyoming.
Are you originally from Pennsylvania?
Yes, I am.
What part?
Near Pittsburgh, little east of Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay. I grew up in York, so okay. I'm a little bit farther east.
Yeah.
It's right in the middle there. So I didn't notice the Pittsburgh accent any. So
we've been in Wyoming since 1983.
Oh,
so we have I think acclimated well.
So I didn't hear any yins in there. So
they still come out when I go home and visit.
Well, that's I'm a Ravens fan. So if you're a Steelers fan, I won't hold it against you.
Yeah, we still have a sign in our right next to our garage.
There are a lot of Steelers fans here. I don't know what it is, but I think they're the new America's team. It seems like it anyway. So you've been here since 1983, and when did you get into the public service side of things?
When I came to Gillette in '83, I worked in the emergency room at the hospital, and I did that for several years. But I had opportunities to start getting involved with the community more. We have one son that we raised here, and just getting to know people, getting involved in the community. Started being involved in Republican women organizations and then party organizations from there, but just found it a welcoming community. Did a lot of work on volunteerism, did a lot of volunteering for the American Cancer Society, started a breast cancer coalition. We actually applied for and received a grant from Susan G. Komen for breast cancer awareness. We did that all back in the 90s. Served on the Public Health Board, served on the Chamber of Commerce Board, was involved with the Campbell County Healthcare foundation in the early 90s, and Nick and I actually did a stint. My husband Nick is worked for Peabody, and we went back to St. Louis from 98 to 2005. And as soon as he could, we retired, and we came back to Gillette and came here to stay. But actually went back on the Campbell County Healthcare Foundation board when I came back and served as president for that organization. So this community is welcoming. There's many opportunities to find involvement in a variety of things. If you can't find something to do, you're not looking.
Well, that's one of the things that I've noticed, that there are a lot of people that are getting involved. At least at the community level. But and then of course this is your. Are you running for your third term, or have you served 3 terms?
I've served 2 terms, or I'm serving in my second term now.
Okay.
So this will be my 3rd election that I'm running for.
And like I said, you are running unopposed, but I mean it's kind of nice to just kind of stop by and talk about these things, because I mean even if you're unopposed, I mean it really is. It's important to get out why you're running and the issues that matter to you as well.
My philosophy has always been not having an opponent is not a reason not to campaign. It's still important to go out and talk to your constituents and talk to folks in town and in the county and find out what issues they're facing, what concerns they have, what's going well. So, running as a candidate maybe gives us a little more breathing room than some of the other candidates that do have opponents, but I don't think it decreases my obligation to be out there and talking with people. Well,
and of course, but that's that's the whole public service part of it. I mean, if you're not in touch with the public, and that's one of the things I think that having a part-time citizen legislature lends itself to. I mean, obviously Wyoming is a small enough state that kind of system works. I mean, you get to bigger states where your local legislators maybe aren't as accessible. So, I mean, you're out in the community, and everybody knows how they can get a hold of you if they have a problem.
I'm pretty easy to find.
So how has your time in Cheyenne been? I mean, just give us a little bit of an overview of what you've done in the past 2 terms.
Well, it's always a whirlwind, even if you've observed and gone down. And one of the things I used to do is take student nurses down and have them observe the legislature, understand how the legislature works, and actually connect with one of their legislators to talk about an issue of importance in healthcare and nursing. So, I spent a lot of time watching the legislature, so I had a pretty good understanding of how they do things, but you never understand it fully until you're sitting on the floor and being accountable, for the decisions and the votes that you make. It's a whirlwind when you first start. I think your first goal is just to try to keep up. And once you've mastered that, keeping up, knowing where you are in the agenda for the day is an amazing feeling of accomplishment, but I think I've been able to contribute well in the time I've been there. I've served 4 years on minerals business and economic development, and for the past 2 years I've served as vice chairman. And so that committee is just vital to what we do here in Campbell County with our energy production and with the recent impacts on our coal industry. And, I think it's important that we keep someone with experience on the minerals committee as we go forward. I've also served for 2 years on labor, health, and social services, and that committee really touches a lot of things that are important to individuals. We have dealt with the impacts of the Affordable Care Act, the Not So Affordable Care Act, the federal exchange, whether or not to expand Medicaid. And we've also dealt with some changes to our waiver system for developmentally disabled, and those are all issues that touch people at their core. They're emotional, they're personal, and they're frightening whenever they change.
Well, and since you mentioned the Medicaid expansion, and during the budget session, that was one of the issues that seemed to it popped up several times during that budget session. Where did you stand on that?
I did not support Medicaid, and I do not support Medicaid expansion at this time. What we have heard, I've been on another select committee that's a health benefit exchange, and I've served on that committee for 4 years. We've had 35 change orders to ACA. We don't know what the impacts of it are going to be financially. We know that costs are increasing for a lot of our citizens. There's no question that some people have been helped in good ways to get insurance coverage, to have subsidies for their insurance coverage, and are enjoying enjoying covered health care maybe for the first time. But what we don't know is what it's all going to cost. We hear at every meeting from our insurance commissioner that it's going to be 1 to 2 years before we understand the financial impacts of ACA alone. And I think that's going to have a big impact on how much money we have to spend going forward. And I think it's fiscally responsible to understand what those impacts are before we add another program, before we add an expansion.
So, and one of the objections that I heard a lot was that the federal government promised to pay this for a certain amount of time, but there was no way to know if they were going to keep that promise. I mean, is that a fair way of characterizing it?
I think there's a lot of folks that are concerned about that. Right now, I think that they are meeting their commitment as a promise, but we have a horrendous federal debt. How we're going to rein that in, how we're going to pay for that, is a question. I don't know. Making a promise from one administration to another through a different Congress, I don't know how that'll stay. Will they say that, yes, we committed, we've got to do this no matter what? Or will they say, we have a responsibility to rein in some of our spending, and a lot of that spending is going to health care, so how do we rein that in? I think in another year, possibly at the end of this year, we'll know more, but by next year, we'll even have more knowledge about how it's working, how it's impacting other states. We looked at the Arkansas plan, and right now they did expand on a special waiver with what they did is they bought insurance for the people that they were expanding to Medicaid. They have a lot of trigger points in there that say if the federal government doesn't keep its end of the bargain, the plan goes away. If we can't pay for these costs, the plan goes away. I don't know all the specifics of it, but they're still tweaking it and trying to understand what the financial impact will be for them. Visited with one of the legislators from Arkansas not too long ago, and he said, if you're not in it yet, don't get in it. Wait and see what happens over the next year. He's on the committees that are really working to try to streamline their activities now. And, he said that, it's costing a lot of money. They think they're doing some good, but they're doing it because they're paring it back as they go forward.
Well, and I think one of the other unique challenges that Wyoming has is that with such a small population, the risk spreading is it's a little bit tougher here than it would be some other states. So I imagine that there would be even a unique challenge adopting that plan as compared to a state the size of Arkansas, which is probably 2.5, 3 million, I think, something like that. So it's probably 5 or 6 times the size of Wyoming.
Absolutely. They're talking about larger numbers. One of the things that we do have here is we know that Wyoming is paying the highest premiums, on average, high deductibles, and I can speak from my own personal experience. I buy on the individual market. My insurance rates have increased 20, 30%. I have $5,000 deductible. Good news is I'm pretty healthy. I don't use a lot of health care, a lot of extra money, but insurance hasn't touched any of my health care needs in the last 3.5 years. Since I retired and started buying my own insurance. I had a small surgical procedure last year and still didn't meet my deductible. So I'm one of those people who are helping others.
Well, and I guess the question with that is, I mean, what have you? And we have a call, and we'll get to you in a second here, Duff. But what have you been hearing from around the state and even in our town as far as what rates have been doing? I mean, 20 to 30% is yours went up that much, mm-hmm. But I mean, have you heard worse or better, or how's it been so far? From
our insurance commissioner for the state of Wyoming, we've heard that it could be anywhere from 20 to 40%. I don't have those actual figures, as to where it is right now, because they were still trying to analyze everything the last time we heard from them.
So yours is right around the average.
20, yeah.
And so we haven't heard a lot of horror stories, because I mean I've heard from other states, 100% increases in some cases. Obviously they're extreme cases, but at least we don't have a whole lot of that going on here. Let's take our call. News Talk 1270, you're on the air.
Hey, Donnie, how are you this morning?
Hey, Duff, how's it going?
It's going okay. Ask Norine if she wants to address the disability waiver waiting list fiasco. I did see her at the conference last week, but I never got a chance to really talk to her.
Hi, Duffy. How are you?
I'm wondering how that's going to work. It looks to me like you and Charlie Scott are trying to weave straw into gold, and it ain't working out real good.
Well, it was good to see you at the disability conference last week. There was a 2-day disability conference where they brought in some experts and talked about, some of the practices that are going on in other states. How that works in Wyoming is still to be seen. I think what we learned through that process is it's important to slow down a little bit and to let providers really try to find what's going to work best for them. There's no question it's a difficult situation. We've put more money towards trying to get people off of the waivers. We have about 600 still on the waiver now, and I anticipate that that's a number that's going to be hard to really whittle down a lot until we get a handle on what the actual approach and best practices in disability care are for our citizens here.
Didn't put much more money towards it. That's one thing that I noticed.
Well,
yeah, what you've been putting out.
Well, and we'll have to continue to study that and see how we have to go forward and how we have to fund that.
Now, I'm not trying to trap you, but define your understanding of providers to me.
Providers are, I think of providers, I think of the community care providers.
About like Renew and Now Cap, so on and so forth.
Any of those, and there are individuals that don't work with like organized. There are some people that do disability care, really in their home, and some of that is changing now. Providers are still the Wyoming Life Resource Center, and we have to, we're studying all of that now and seeing how we can best spend all of our dollars for disability in the state of Wyoming.
Because the one thing that I'm looking at running back and forth over the mountain is the providers as you define them. I'm going to be watching them going away, and the only thing you're going to have left is like ARC and bridges, because right here in our own community, wave goodbye to Renew.
Yep, Renew is leaving this community. They'll still be operating in Sheridan and Newcastle, and I think that's it's one of the unfortunate.
The providers are getting beat out of a job, basically.
It's one of the unfortunate things in transitions. You see people kind of take a look at their situation and decide how they need to best go forward as business. And our goal for the state is to make sure that we have enough providers, enough case managers to take care of the needs of individuals.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. You're adding 600 people that are on the waiting list on disability waivers. You want to go ahead and add them into the people that are already there with the same amount of money, and it ain't going to work.
Well, certainly there is a goal to get people off of the waiting list, but we'll have to do that in a focused and responsible way as we can.
Well, and at the risk of sounding glib, after 10 hours and 30 minutes on Tuesday, looks to me like the answer is we'll just send everybody back to their homes and throw a little money at them and let them sort it out.
I didn't get quite that impression out of it, but I think that as we review the information that we've heard and spend more time with our providers, we'll be finding that out.
And I hate to cut you off, Duff, but we're up against a break. So why don't we take the break and we'll come back and we'll touch on a couple other things. Thanks a lot for the call, Duff. That was excellent questions. I wouldn't have. I have no experience with that stuff, so it's always good to get those. Calls. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. News Talk 1270 KIML.
Please remain seated until the show comes to a complete stop. Thank you. Carry on.
Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML. You're listening to Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML. Call Don right now, 682-1270.
News Talk 1270 KIML. Don Carpenter Show. Welcome back to the program. It's 8:36, and if you're just joining us, we're talking with Norine Kasperik. She's House Representative District 32 representative. She's running in the primary and in the general for a third term, and we might have a call here. We got the call right as we were going to break, so I don't know if the caller was able to stick with us, but we'll give it a shot. News Talk 1270. Sounds like you're there. You're on the air.
Yeah. Good morning, Don.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, I just wanted to call in and comment on Duff. He supported all this stuff, and he still supports it. But now that he's got it, he's still not happy, which just goes to prove even when they get what they want, they ain't happy.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to put words in anybody's mouth, but.
All right. Well, you have a good day, Don.
Hey, thanks a lot. Yeah, I'm not gonna badmouth Duff. He's a good guy. He's the only way I can get Democrats in the show. So I gotta keep the lines of communication open. So we kind of touched a little bit on some of the committees you've served on, and one of the committees is the Minerals Committee, and I always ask. The candidates that stop by, since the energy industry is so important to what we do here in Gillette. I mean, really, it's the base of everything. I mean, we have some tourism and we have a lot of other businesses, but they're all basically supported by the mineral industry. What would you what have you done so far to protect our mineral industry here?
I think one of the first things that was of great importance when we first started. Excuse me, I'm going to have to cough for just a second.
Actually, if you want to put that on hold for a second, I don't want to keep our caller waiting. So we'll take a call. We'll take a call, and we'll go back to that in a second. News Talk 1270, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just had a call that one of the state people was on talking about the DD waiver. Is this true?
Yes. Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
As a mother, I think it stinks.
Okay. And you're.
They have cut people something fierce, and I know they have a waiting list. Don't get me wrong. Them people, all of them need help also. But when there is a big reserve like the state of Wyoming has, Now, they've cut everybody's, and it's already caused one business to be closing in town. Renew is moving their people to Sheridan. You know, somebody ought to went to that meeting, the so-called state meeting, which, by the way, there was 31. I left at noontime because the complex was so cold. It was so cold, everybody was freezing. Anyway, they had these motivational speakers first. And the gist of it was they want to get everyone a job, which the ones that can work are capable. It's fine. But they all cannot work. Give me a break. They cannot all work. They can't due to their capabilities. Everybody would like that. That would be fine if they could. But the gist of it was get them a job, get them in an apartment by themselves, do away with the group homes.
Hi, this is Norine. We heard a lot of that, from some of the experts that spoke about where they have closed some of the group homes in other states. We have yet to see how that'll work for Wyoming, but...
Well, it is working, my dear, because Renew is closing theirs.
Yes, yeah, and I'm sorry that we're losing Renew to the community. I think that the conference was to try to identify some of the things that were working in other states, how it compared with how we were approaching it, and I think you're absolutely right. I think what we found out is that we need to slow down, and we need to take a look at it, and we need to give people some time, and we need to look at the funding and see if it is adequate to some of the needs that we're trying to get forward now. So I think this session will be important as we continue to look at that issue and study it.
And I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
I'm Norine Kasperik. I'm from...
Okay.
So, I think we did hear, and I heard a lot of understanding from people that were there, that we all need to work together, parents, individuals with disability, the Department of Health, Department of Family Services, that we needed to be able to break down some of the, lack of communication between all of those entities and bring everybody together and make sure that our way forward is the right way forward for Wyoming.
Well, I had I wanted to talk to the governor when he was in town, but it was icy. I did not want to drive in town because I'm old. And so I called down there and got an appointment. They wanted me to talk to an aide. I said, no, I didn't vote for the aide. I voted for Governor Meade, so I need to talk to him. So I did, in fact, have a half-hour conversation with him. All he could say to me was, well, I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I told him he sounded just like any other politician. But anyway, then I had a conversation with a lady from the Department of Health. She sat there and lied to me twice. I mean, she just contradicted herself. So they don't even understand it, Noreen. They don't understand it. But I will give that old boy, the first one that spoke, I mean, for an old guy, he has his message down pat. I mean, how much did they pay them motivational speakers to come here?
I'm not aware of all the funding for it. We did put some money towards it from the legislature, but I don't know exactly what was spent. I wasn't part of the organization of the event.
Well, I was plumb disgusted, and like I said, it was so cold in there. I left when the lunch break went, and I kept seeing all these state cars, so I went from one end to the other. 31 state cars. Now, what a waste of money. Couldn't they have doubled up? And
I can't speak to that, but
no, you can't. But I couldn't believe 31 cars.
Yeah.
State tags on them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thankful to hear you saying that they need to slow down, because they darn well do. Because these people, they don't ask to be born this way. You know?
I understand that. No, I know.
And when you're older and have a child, well, not a child, they are all children, so to speak.
Well, your kids are always your kids, no matter what. And I think
Right.
I think I might know who this is, but I'm
Lila Kent.
As soon as I heard your voice, Lila, I knew it was you. And
well, everybody knows my voice. What can I say?
Well, we've kind of gone back a long way.
I hate to cut you off. We have another caller on the line. I want to thank you for the call, and thanks for listening too. And I had no idea that this is such a hot button issue. I would have gone right back to it after the break, but I think we have another call here. We'll give it a shot. News Talk 1270, you're on the air.
Yes.
Yeah, you're on the air.
I want to address a little bit on this. I am a parent of a 35-year-old disabled son. He goes out in the community with his provider. We can keep him on task for approximately 1 hour a day as far as he volunteers. He's volunteered at all these different places, soup kitchens, you name it. The senior center, he now works at, but he helps at St. Matthew's school. And to keep him on task for approximately an hour is a chore in itself. So he volunteers to go out into the community and do things. You can't find a person a job that will only take them for an hour a day. And then they come in and cut every program they can possibly think of, taking things away from them. And, I mean, we're not here for a handout by any means, but we take care of all these other people that want to go out and have kids illegitimately, whatever you want to call it. This is really beginning to burn the skin of people.
Well, and I appreciate the call. We have Duff calling back in. I think you have to find the balance between providing the right level of services and being able to afford those services. But thanks for the call. Like I said, I had no idea this was such a hot button issue. We're going to move on to some other stuff here in a second. We'll let Duff get the final say.
Hey, Don, how are you?
Yeah, you're on the air.
Yeah, there's no way we can cover this whole mess in even 2 hours. But Lila brought up the deal about the job thing. Let me just kind of give you a little highlight on it. Up to this point in time, you could take people out and put them to work in the community, whether it be 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, whatever, doing, what they were capable of doing. And it was working. Well, now under this new scheme where we go ahead and spin straw into gold, you can't do that anymore. If they go to work out in the community, they can't be separated from everybody else on the job force. They have to be mainstreamed right in, and it's not going to happen. So guess what? Then people that were, for all practical purposes, producing members of society, even though limited, they're not going to have a job anymore. along with the providers that are shutting down because they can't compete. So like I said, it's really a mess, and it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Hey, Dov, thank you for your comments. I think that we still have a lot of talking to do as we go forward. So hearing from you and Lila and the other folks is important, and I do believe that I know from the legislators that were there was a sense that we do need to slow down and take a look at it. Not dismiss what we're hearing as some pretty good practices in other areas, but we've got to figure out a way that we can make some of that work here in Wyoming, and it's not going to work in every instance. It's going to take a lot of talking, a lot of communication with everyone. So thank you for being part of that.
Well, and for the folks that have to deal with having a disabled kid, I mean, I'm sure. I can't even imagine something like that. I mean, it's got to be, it's got to be incredibly taxing, and I'm sure the state tries to do the right thing by those folks, but again, I guess it's just a matter of trying to find that right balance, right?
It's always hard to find balance, and but you can't do it, in your own little box, without the expertise and the understanding of the parents and the experts that are out there. And I think that's what we need to keep doing as we go forward.
Well, and again, I don't want to cut off a good discussion, but I do want to talk about a few other things, and we only probably have about. I mean, do you have any limit on how long you need to be here?
My next appointment's at 10, but I don't want to take up all of your time either.
Okay, well, we'll do maybe 10 or 15 more minutes, and I'll get caught up on spots later. I'll worry about that stuff later. This is too good to put a break to. But I did want to talk about some of the other stuff, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the energy industry and some of the things that the legislature's been doing to help protect the industry. So why don't we just touch on some of those things real quick?
Some of the, I think, important things that have occurred through legislature in regards to the energy industry. It's one of the first things when I was first elected was we had just a state backlog of permitting, and it was creating a lot of tension, was slowing down the process of people getting out there and actually producing. And so we were able to work with the Department of Environmental Quality, hire one more FTE, I think, to do permitting and to repurpose some of the other employees in the department. And we were able to really bring down that backlog. Now, that hasn't done anything to really help us with the federal problem. BLM, tells us on most of the EISs it's going to be some are 3 years, some are 4 years, some are 5 years, some longer than that. And that's a huge issue. We want people to be able to produce responsibly in the state of Wyoming. And if they're taking 3 to 5 to 6 years or more, to get them through some of the processes, that's just too long. And so we created a select committee called Federal Natural Resource Management that actually brought people from the BLM, people from the Forest Service, people from some of these federal agencies that are charged with trying to get these permits through. And we've been able to sit them down at the same table with county commissioners, some of the industry people, and really start talking face to face about some of those concerns. It has been helpful in some cases, and we think it'll continue to be helpful going forward. But I think our people that are in state with BLM and Forest Service, they are Wyoming. They're trying to do the best job. They talk well with the people that they deal with, but their hands are sometimes tied whenever they go to the federal level, and that's been a difficult one. We have invited the EPA to come and sit at our table and talk with us and answer some questions, but they have refused to do that. So we deal with them through some legislation. We've certainly passed a law last year that said that if we continue to have problems, with the EPA meeting its requirement, respecting Wyoming's primacy on permitting and quality issues, then we support the spending of money to litigate those issues. In fact, the state of Wyoming, I think, has like 25 lawsuits, where the federal government has overreached, where we feel the federal government has overreached its power and its limits. And we're pushing back as hard as we can to keep them moving forward and to understand the need for reliable, affordable energy, not only for Wyoming but for our country, and that we do it right. We have a good track record of doing it right, and yet all of these regulations, particularly EPA, we've dealt with regional haze, and I think we have a lawsuit related to that. Any haze you see out there is generally from forest fires in other states. Right now we have haze in the western part of the state, and it's coming from Oregon, Washington, Canada. It's not coming from the energy industry in Wyoming. Whenever they talk about the new regulations and trying to decrease our pollutants by 30%, I think power plants in the United States only accounts for 2% of carbon dioxide, globally. India and China account for 20%. Just with two countries.
Oh yeah,
and we are not going to make those big impacts on decreasing carbon dioxide emissions, without spending millions and billions of dollars, to retrofit some of these plants. And it's important that we keep talking about what's right, what makes sense, what's reliable. And what do people want? They want affordable energy. Let's not, increase the financial burdens on our country as we go forward. Let's have an all of the above mix. 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 Let's have an all of the above mix.